Hello, Namaskar, Vanakkam. I hope all of you are doing well. Welcome to the Bullet Short Revision series of Flamingo and Vistas ahead of your CBSE Class 12 English examination, the board exams of 2025. In this video, we are going to look at poets and pancakes. Now, what is this going to contain? This is going to contain the basic story in about 9 to 10 points, and then we would look at both subjective question and answers written by me, also extract based and MCQs which I have taken from different sources, CBSE papers of the past, not the board paper, but CBSE specimen papers of the past. But the more important and interesting and more useful aspect is that I have managed to get my hands on papers prepared by teachers from Kolkata, from Delhi, from Patna, from various other cities, so that it gives you an idea about what kind of questions you could possibly expect. All of them are competency focused questions. So what is in the story? These notes are there on the Study with Sudhir Instagram page reels. Please look at them. Okay, don't bother to write down anything. Ashok Mitran was the pen name of Jagdish Tyagarajan. He passed away in Chennai in 2017. This entire story has been explained as an explanation video on the channel. If any one of you wants to see that to understand it better, because this is a slightly complicated story. Gemini Studios is where the story is set. It is in Madras or Chennai. It was renamed as Gemini in 1940. It is located next to a flyover which is called Gemini Flyover. What is the meaning of the title? The story talks about different poets and wannabe poets. Wannabe poets means poets who think they want to be poets, poets who aspire to be poets, people who think they are into poetry. The first one was the person who had the job of applying makeup on different artists. He had come in the hope of becoming an actor or writer. He was also a poet. Subbu was the other character. He was number 2 at Gemini Studio. Subbu was also a poet. The makeup man hated him. He always could come up with solutions when the producer had faced any kind of problem. Then Subbu was also a good actor and played small roles. Many poets often hung around at Gemini Studios. Many of them were khadi clad. What is pancake? Because when you're told about the title, you need to mention about the pancake. It is a brand name of the makeup material that Gemini Studios used for their artists. Rati Agnihotri, who came into fame with Ek Duje Ke Liye in the early 80s, would not have used it because Gemini Studios was abandoned in 1975 and she made her debut in films in 1979. Character of the legal advisor is another character. Many poets were averse to communism. Then Frank Brookman's Moral Rearmament Army, which visited Madras in 1952, presented 2 plays. It was a counter movement to communism. So, he wonders whether Vasan was taken for a ride. He was the owner of Gemini Studios. Then he talks about an editor from England, right? And his name, he finds out later, was Stephen Spender. And he finds a book that is written by Stephen Spender. And he realized that Vasan was against communism and therefore Stephen Spender had been hosted at the Gemini Studios. This is precisely what happens in the story. Now let's look at the test paper. In a moment, I felt a dark chamber of my mind lit up by a hazy illumination. What emotion is the author talking about here? Is he talking about despondency, acute pain, contempt, or realization? He's talking about realization. Battling with half a dozen pedestal fans on the shooting stage. Who is the author talking about? Who is the author talking about? Is he talking about unruly fans, fans of movie stars, fans to provide air, or 6 pedestrians? He's talking about fans to provide air. Those were the days when Congress rule meant prohibition. Choose the correct meaning. What does it mean? Right? It means, so it means alcohol could not be consumed in Madras state. I'll just give you a historical context. When C. Rajagopalachari was Chief Minister of Madras state, that was the earlier name of Tamil Nadu, he had imposed prohibition like the way it is in Gujarat. In any case, there was this man in the makeup department who would wish the direst things for Subbu. Here, direst things means sabse, kharab wish for anyone. He wishes the direst thing for him. He wishes that he would fail. Now, that is something very unfortunate. Here, it refers to urgent, desperate, disastrous, or dreadful. It means dreadful. Disastrous also would come close, but dreadful is much more close to direst. An extremely talented, which is why I say don't try to understand English in Hindi or any other vernacular language, because these kind of questions you will otherwise struggle with. An extremely talented actress who was also extremely temperamental once blew over on the sets. Pick the idiom that matches best with blew over. Now, again, if you do not follow it in English, you will struggle with idioms. What does it mean? It means get bent out of shape, because blew over means to lose one's temper. The makeup department was first headed by a Bengali who became too big for a studio and left. What is being conveyed here? Right? So it would convey option B. The makeup men could turn any decent looking person into one of hideous crimson hue. What does hideous crimson mean? It means ugly. The poet could not have addressed a more dazed and silent audience, because no one knew what he was talking about, and his accent, because most of them were more familiar with Tamil and not with English, especially with the kind of accent in which Stephen Spender spoke in. No one knew about what he was talking about, and his accent defeated any attempt to understand what he was saying. Seeing me sitting at my desk, tearing up newspapers day in and day out, most people thought I was doing next to nothing. It is likely that the boss thought likewise too. What does thought likewise mean? That everybody thought that he did not do any work. Thought likewise means he also shared the same opinion. So obviously option A. Pick the quote that best describes Subbu's role in Gemini Studios. Yeah, so option C. C is the correct one. Let's look at some extract based questions. Please go through it quickly and then I will go through the questions. I'll give you 10 seconds to read the extract fast. Some of these questions, it's quite possible that you may have read in some question banks like Oswald, etc. But I have not taken it from there, because they also would have sourced some of the questions. But I believe these are some good questions which will give you good practice ahead of your board examination. So this is about the reference to Robert Clive. Can I move ahead? I don't want to spend too much time on anything. I want to kind of be very, very meticulous with the usage of our precious time. Your time, my time. What literary device is used in brought in truckloads? It is used, yes, option D. What can be inferred from Greta Garbo must have used it, Miss Gohar must have used it, Vajanti Balame Bhattacharya, that pancake was an old product, the modern product, or was not used by the next generation. So option 1 and there are this thing. So options 1 and 3 is the right answer. What can be inferred from the author's mention of Robert Clive's stables? So option B, that it was located at a historical site. Which of the following is the author's tone of his comments on Robert Clive? It is one of admiring. You know, there is a sense of admiration when he speaks about Robert Clive. Provide the antonym for the word remote: close by or nearby. That can be this thing. Now let's look at the second extract. I want you to go through it and then I'm giving you 10 seconds, go through it quickly, and then we will look at the questions. Okay, let's move ahead. Stages of worldly experience in the given context would refer to what? Situations that require one to be street smart. Select the suitable word from the extract to complete the following analogy: sealed, closed, propelled, catapulted. Okay. Sealed means to close something, that's what it closed. Propelled means again to when you go somewhere. Catapulted also conveys a similar kind of meaning. The harm done to the actress was was a well-planned act, unintentional act, act of jealousy, act of male dominance. The correct option is option A. Based on the above extract, choose the statement that is true for the legal advice. Yeah, so option C. Identify the textual clue that allows the reader to infer that the writer is sympathetic when he says uses the word that met a sad end, that conveys that the writer is sympathetic towards what happened to the actor. Let's look at third extract. His success in films over. I put here more because I realize this is also a more complicated, complex chapter than many others in Flamingo. Read this and then I will scroll down. Tilana Monambal is a very famous movie in Tamil, Shivaji Ganeshan Padmini. Okay. Which of these statements is not true about Subbu? Okay. Option A. The word sprawling has been used with the word novel. Pick the option with which the word sprawling cannot be used. It can be used with the metropolis. It can be used with campus, between handwriting and portrait. Which one do you think? Handwriting also can be described as sprawling. I think portrait, yes, portrait is the right answer, where it cannot be used. The phrase deftly etched shows that Subbu created the roles delicately, was skillful in creating the characters, pondered beyond necessity about the characters, gave very little thought to the characters, was skillful in creating the characters. Give the antonym for the word subsidiary. Principal is the antonym. So synonyms and antonyms is something which you need to be prepared with. Prepared means be able to manage. What is the, now this is a PYQ from 2020. What is the fiery misery to those subject to pancake makeup? The phrase fiery misery in the story Poets and Pancakes refers to the discomfort and heat that actors and actresses experienced when they were subjected to pancake makeup. The makeup room at Gemini Studios was equipped with incandescent lights, which generated a lot of heat. As a result, the actors and actresses would often feel hot and uncomfortable while they were being made up. The heat was so intense that it was referred to as fiery misery. The phrase is a reminder of the challenges that actors and actresses face even when they are working on a major film production. So you see, when you write an answer like this, it's a very well-rounded answer. You're explaining the term, the context of the term, and giving the reason why it has been used in the particular passage. That's how I want you to write your answers. How does the author describe the incongruity, means something strange, of an English poet addressing the audience at Gemini Studios? The author describes the incongruity of an English poet addressing the audience at Gemini Studios by noting that the poet was speaking in English, which was not the native language of the audience. That made it difficult for the audience to understand what the poet was saying. Secondly, the poet had a strong accent, which made it even more difficult for the audience to understand him. They had also no taste for English poetry. Third reason, the poet was talking about the thrills and travails. So you see, I've used a key phrase from the story itself of being an English poet, which were not relevant to the audience at Gemini Studios. The audience was made up of Tamil film workers who were not interested in English poetry. Finally, the writer himself seemed to be aware of the incongruity of the situation. He himself wondered why was he there. He looked baffled, means confused, and dazed as he spoke, and he seemed to realize that his speech was not having any impact on the audience. The author's description of the incongruity of the English poet's speech is effective in creating a sense of humor and irony. It also depicts a cultural divide. Now, why you may think, do I really need to write a long answer? No, you can shorten it. What I've done is to give you all the points. You can make it more crisp while you're writing the answer in case the question gives you a word limit. But if it gives you a longer word limit, this kind of description would work. But agar crisp karna hai, points sare include karo, but just make it a little more crisp. That's precisely what I want you to do. Why is the Englishman's visit to in Poets and Pancakes referred to as an unexplained mystery? Because the Englishman's visit in poetry is referred to an unexplained because no one could decipher his identity. No one understood who he is, whether he was a poet or an editor. Besides, no one at the studio understood what he intended to say, as his accent was behind their comprehension. They could not comprehend what he was saying. The Englishman arrived at the studio unannounced and without any prior introduction. He was introduced as a poet from England, but no one knew his identity. Again, the accent, the thrills and travails. So all that you need to talk about. Okay, was a brief and no one knew why he came to the studio, what he hoped to achieve, or even his real name. So this part, the second part of the poet, is an important one. The first part about Subbu and the actress and the poet, the pancake, that part is important. So you can just look at it in two halves, because I do realize that this is seen as a slightly complicated story by many students. I hope these answers helped you, this test helped you unravel the story a little better, and you would just go through the story once, look at these questions again at 2x speed. You'll be good to go as far as poets and pancakes is concerned. Thank you very much. God bless you.